In preparing for the author's interview, there's a few things that I want you to know that's going to make it very, very effective. This isn't just a conversation between friends and it's not just a podcast. It's actually got a slightly different approach. We are using the transcription of this interview as the base of the manuscript for your book or your chapter. Now, the way we speak in an interview or in a conversation is slightly different to how we would read those words if they were written on a page. So today what I want to do is give you some tips, tricks, and insider kind of guidance on how to really be effective in doing the interview. This is the bit that's actually most nerve-wracking for most people, but actually once you kind of ease into it and you kind of know these things, you're going to really enjoy it. So everyone comes out the other end saying, wow, was that it? You know, that wasn't quite so hard. So here's a few things that I want you to know. Preparing for the author's interview. So there are 9 things that I want you to kind of think about. The first thing is good audio is incredibly important because we are going to take the transcription of your of this and we use that as the basis for everything. So good audio. That means please have a quiet room. That also means turn off distractions. No phones, no alerts, no nothing, everything on airplane mode, please. Because the second you get a text and you get distracted from it, now the whole interview goes off, off the rails. As best you can, try and reduce interruptions from your physical environment. If possible, and you have a USB microphone or a microphone that plugs into your phone or iPad, use that because generally the quality from those microphones is much better than the quality that is just built into your laptop. So, number 1, good audio. Number 2, we have frameworks for you to keep on track. People often say, okay, now I've done the strategy session, how do I sort of talk about, what I want to talk about? Well, we've got really a deep pedagogical, that means teaching theories and practice around how we do things. So use them. This is really fantastic frameworks. So use those frameworks. When you tell the story, use the framework that we've got. When you teach a topic, use those frameworks. Now, here's the thing. It's not important that you script it out. That's not important at all. You know your topic really well, and so what I do is I put memory joggers in those frameworks because as we're going through, you can just look at it and say, oh yeah, I was going to tell that story or I was going to bring that up. If you just wing it, you're going to forget a bunch of stuff. So to make your writing as effective as it can be, use those frameworks as memory joggers. I use post-it notes all the time. I place them there so that I know exactly what I want to say. And how I say it, excuse me, is less important than that I cover each of those areas because you don't want to leave out a big piece. So we've got some great frameworks. Obviously, we've got our teaching frameworks that we use. This is probably one of the primary frameworks for you to use when you're talking about your topic. What's the name of your topic? How does it work? Why does it work? What's an example or a famous example maybe? What's the difference that this makes when you use this technique? And what happens if you don't use that technique? Is there a reference or a citation? And do you have a framework or model? That little framework for teaching anything is extremely powerful. As is all the other frameworks. The Earn the Right framework, again, just, use these as memory joggers. You don't need to script it out. The Y stack is a really powerful framework. Use that to just, jog your memory as to what you want to say. All these frameworks are here to really, really help you. Now, the third thing is take your time, all right? Um, Speaking too fast or stumbling over your words, it makes the transcription really difficult. And if you have a strong accent, just slow down a little bit. We'll be able to grab most of those words, but if you're constantly jumbling your words over each other, it's really hard to transcribe. So slow down and put some space in between those words. There's no need to rush. Avoid talking fast. I know it's easy to get sort of nervous and excited and we talk fast, but just, remind yourself to slow down. Here's one of the biggest things. When we talk, we often go, oh yeah, and that reminds me of a case to talk about, but then it also reminds me of that over there. That's a very conversational way of talking. And when you transcribe it, it doesn't complete ideas or link sentences very well. So what I'd like you to do is, if you find yourself jumping around, I'd like you to complete an idea before you jump on to the next topic. Now, here's the other little thing, is that our job as interviewers is to capture that every now and then. And sometimes you will be making a good point that we feel isn't complete, and we will reframe or paraphrase what you're saying. Now, a lot of people, will hear the interviewer say that and they go, yep, that's exactly right. But that's actually, that's okay. But what I'd like you to do is say, yes, that's exactly right. And here's another level of depth I can go to with that idea. So use the interviewer's paraphrase and reframe to clarify ideas, to expand on them, and to realize that maybe you're jumping around a little bit when an interviewer is reframing a lot. So I'm a huge fan of building depth using stories, frameworks, and case studies. So, if the interviewer paraphrases something, and what I want you to say is, yes, and a good case study that illustrates that is this, or a story that illustrates that is this, or a framework that helps people do this is this. So I want you to have some rough stories, frameworks, case studies that you can refer to. All of that is in your strategy session. It's all, we've kind of captured it. So just make some notes on what they are, put in a little bit of detail and have them at the ready so that you can put them in and add real depth and a real ability to teach people how to transform their thinking. When it comes to storytelling, most people are pretty good at describing what happened and using the facts of what happened. First this happened, then that happened, then the next thing happened. But the more powerful element of storytelling is to let the reader inside. If you're telling a story about you and something that you went through, then don't just tell them what happened, tell them about what happened inside. A good example of this is an author that I was doing an amazing thing on how he transformed his life. And he spoke about being away on a camping trip, and he woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, realizing that his life wasn't how he wanted it to be. And he very quickly said, and by the end of that camping trip, I had decided to change my mind. Or decided to change my life, and he actually got divorced and changed careers, and that was a really, really big leap. And what I wanted to know as a reader was, what went through your mind when you woke up in the middle of the night on a camping trip? What was going through your mind? You were probably thinking, if I continue on this road, I'm going to be miserable in my relationship. I'm doing work I don't want to do, and all of a sudden I'll be 70 years old and I won't have ever done the thing I really wanted to do. That left me feeling deeply depressed and full of anxiety for the decisions that I hadn't made. So I want you to let us know inside what's, your mind will catastrophize ideas. If I don't do this, this amazingly catastrophic thing will happen. Tell us what that is. People also have these big, bright dreams. If I can do this massive thing, I might be able to change the world. Let us know what's going on inside your head, because that's the thing which readers will connect to. Not just the facts, but give them a sense of that internal dialogue. Number 8, video is important, but audio is king. Now, why is video important? It's important because the interviewer needs to be able to see you and to respond to you. So while video is important, it's audio that we want to be absolutely crystal clear. The last thing is that don't assume that people know. Make the assumption that everyone who's reading this is just doesn't have the base level of knowledge. What that does is it helps people feel like they can come along for the ride. And you've probably all had that experience of listening to someone speak and they say an acronym that you don't understand. And what happens is you get to that acronym, you go, I wonder what that acronym means. Oh, it could mean this or it could mean that. Meanwhile, the presenter or the person who's teaching has continued teaching, but you're stuck back at that acronym that you don't know. And that's because you've assumed everyone knows that acronym. Well, don't make that assumption, because that's called unstable data. And when there is a bit of unstable data, and what that is when people read it and they don't know what you mean, that's where they stop. They won't read past that. They won't get the lesson that's past that. So as you go through, if you have an acronym, explain what that is. If you have an idea, take a moment to explain what that is. And I did that just a minute ago when I said we have really sound pedagogical frameworks. Now, maybe not everyone knows what pedagogical means, and what that means is a system for teaching. And so I very quickly explained pedagogical means a system for teaching, and then you can move on. Now everyone's with me on that, and they haven't been lost. It's really important as you go through that you really stabilize that data all the way through. So if you use these 9 key elements in your thinking and your preparation, you're going to come into this author's interview in really good shape. The transcription's going to be awesome, and the chapter's going to be powerful and transformational for those that read it. After we've done the interview and we've transcribed it and edited it, you will have a chance to review it. And that's where most people would like to, add or subtract or make some changes. That's your chance to expand on some ideas, or any of the bits that you missed, you can go back and use those frameworks to fill that in. So there will definitely be a review process, but what we're aiming to do is get it as good as we can possibly get it in this interview. And these techniques are going to really help you maximize the impact from your author's interview.